But where I net out on this thing, let's just talk about USC, because I just got off on the Pac-12 and we did a thing on social media where you heard from a lot of fans, and there's a lot of frustration with where Tennessee sits, LSU sits, and all things fine and dandy. Like, and my message to the SC fans is that if USC is able to beat three straight teams that are ranked highly, like you look where UCLA is ranked, that's not like a nothing win, right? There's value to that. If they're able to beat Notre Dame, and if Notre Dame continues to get stronger, that is a dramatically valued win. And if they're able to either avenge a Utah loss or beat an Oregon team, I mean, there's a bunch of ways this Pac-12 thing can go, depending on how Saturday rolls. They're going to walk in with 3 straight incredibly quality wins, a win against Oregon State on the road that now means a lot more than it did a week ago when Oregon State fell out of the rankings. And they're going to play 9 conference games. Rice might be bowl eligible. Fresno State is leading their division. Like, they don't have any weak sauce games. And then you add in a guy who, if it was today, would probably be on a PJ to New York City for the Heisman. As a Heisman voter, I'd put him on my ballot. Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
They lose Travis Dye, who's a dramatic hit, but that's why the portal exists. Austin Jones was a starter at Stanford for 2 years. Now he's going to start at SC. Raleek Brown was one of the top few running backs in the country. He's faster than everybody on the field. I'll remind you of DeAnthony Thomas, a little bit of Reggie in terms of when he puts his foot in the ground. He's healthy. We know they have weapons because Jordan Addison and Mario Williams have missed majority of the last couple of games. And Kyle Ford, Taj Washington, we've seen the wideouts. And then defensively, they're going to get their best player back. Well, I'd say their second best player in Eric Gentry, who at 6'6", with a 7'6.25" wingspan in the middle, impacts games more than anybody. So I say that because you heard Boo Corrigan say, well, we love SC. All he talked about was the offense. That ain't slowing down. Like, they come at you in waves. So if they're able to win, and I don't think they need to win like 50-0 because they're playing ranked teams, to my message to SC fans and people in the Pac-12 is, you'll be fine. Like, you'll be just fine, because that will put them in a great situation heading into what will be Selection Sunday.
Yeah. That's an interesting point, because they were talking about, George, remember they were talking about TCU having one of the hardest finishers, but that finishing slate right there, I don't think anyone has that.
No one does.
No
one will play close. 3 straight ranked.
No, that's definitely solid, but the question will become, and Yogi, this is why you're leading us, and this is why we go to you. USC, if they handle the business, I still think, and how can I keep giving them all their flowers? We think they're a year ahead. This is a house money year. They're just now fortifying things. They're just now taking the name tags off in the building. Like, everybody there is starting to learn them all. But a 1-loss SC, USC, Pac-12 champ turns and looks at Tennessee, and Tennessee's like, we also have 1 loss, and ours was to the top of the mountain. Michigan and Ohio State look at each other and they're like, if he beats me or I beat him, we both would beat you.
Yeah.
And then that would also give us a loss, like you have a loss. And it's still, when people are like, well, the champ, even if all 5 head honchos of all 5 Power 5 conferences all came in undefeated, someone's going to get left out anyway. So that you must have a conference crown. It can't always hold. What happens there, and what do you tell people from the Pac-12 standpoint? SC's 1 loss, Tennessee's 1 loss, Big Ten runner-ups 1 loss. Yeah. How could SC's be bigger than or better than those 2, or more deserving, I should say?
Yeah, well, this is where I go. I go right to here. So I don't know if you guys have ever done this, but I'd recommend it. The College Football Playoff invites members of the media down to Dallas once a year. You do a mock selection, and you get to see what it's like. And I got to go do that, and they took me through exactly how they do it. My role was the chair of the committee at the time. It was Rob Mullen. So Rob was there, the athletic director at Oregon. He walked me through the whole thing, the process in which, when it's tight, where do they go? And they go to a couple places. One, they go to head-to-head. None of those teams referenced would have played each other other than Tennessee LSU, which I think would be an interesting argument. Number 2, they go to Conference Championship 1. Then they go to strength of record. And when I look at those things, and this is just my opinion, the last time I checked, this is the CFP, not the SEC CFP. Like, I do not see this being a round robin for the SEC. Like, I don't see a world where 3 teams are in this discussion, right? If we have just absolute madness, and let's just say LSU wins the SEC championship, I just think we'd all assume that Georgia's
I think
in
that's
it.
the only way. That's
You know?
the only way that 2 SEC teams get in this year.
Yeah, we're not going to see 3, right? So
No.
I say that to like the point of when it's tight, they're going to go there. Then let's just lay it all out. Let's just say USC beats Oregon. Like, you have now like a tie, and we know that they tie things together. Like, Notre Dame is tied to a couple teams now in consideration. If you just look at the top 10, USC will be that, right? You look at Oregon and Georgia and Tennessee and Georgia, that game will be tied, right? If SC is to beat Oregon in the title game, I think that's another feather in the cap for SC. And then I really think they're going to look at the strength of record, right? Tennessee, I'm not knocking Akron, Ball State, or whoever they played. I don't even know who the week 2 game was. Pitt, when they beat my Pitt Panthers, Pitt was ranked, but there was a backup quarterback who was hobbled. They're not ranked now. So I think they'll look at that and look at the finish that SC has had, because the reality is South Carolina, Vanderbilt, it's not even in the same conversation as the next 3 games that USC is going to play. So that's where I net out on it. Like, it'll be super tight, but when you only have 8 conference games, you don't have a dramatically strong non-con looking at it today. I think it puts SC in a really strong position.
Do you think they are better than any team above them?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think if we took a neutral field, USC, I'd love to see it. Like, I'm curious on the Ohio State, Michigan teams. I know, you watch them, you guys watch them more than I do. But I don't look at any of the teams. Even when I look at Georgia, I'm not saying they're, and we've talked about this before, they're not 2020 Alabama, 2019 LSU, 2021 Georgia. Like, I don't think anybody is like invincible this year. So I'd love to see it. I'm with you. I think SC is a year ahead of schedule, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't go if they finish.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Like, if they win their games, to me, I'd love to see them against Tennessee. Tennessee looked great against LSU and looked not so great against Georgia, right? LSU looked terrible against Tennessee, looked terrible against Arkansas. I was surprised they're as high as they are. Like, giving them a mulligan, that to me doesn't exist in this stage of the season of, survive an advanced game. No, not to me.
Yeah.
Trevor just gave us the odds breakdown. Take it for what it's worth. Everybody above USC at a minimum would be a 10.5 point favorite. And it says LSU would be a 6 point favorite, except LSU. LSU would be a 6 point favorite. Everybody else above would be 10.5. And I'm not even going to ask what a Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State would be. I'm just going to take it at that. 10.5 is the floor. Yes, they're early, but Hack pointed out something, Yogi. Yes, they're so they're compelling. Who doesn't want to see Caleb Williams? But when Caleb's on the sideline, that defensive unit's out there, I don't see how they get these teams off the field consistently. I don't see how you get a Michigan off the field, a Georgia off the field. I don't know how they run with an Ohio State or a Tennessee, and even TCU, which really throws haymakers. They don't jab. I don't know how they go up against a TCU, but you watch SC more than we watch them. How would they answer all those things?
Yeah, I think, again, like, to the odds, like, talk to me in 2 weeks and I'd love to know what those odds are. Or after this weekend, again, one SC shows up, because you can't run from their schedule in terms of they haven't played any world beaters, right? Oregon State's their only ranked win. And I could say the same thing for Ohio State and Michigan. Like, right, Clinton, you have that argument every week. Like, I think just on paper, that's a fair assessment. I think the style in which Lincoln Riley's team plays is one which they're going to impact you defensively. Like, I don't know many teams that are ranked higher than them that can match up against Caleb, Addison, Raleek. This offensive line is good enough to be playing at that level.
Yeah, but
like,
teams have played with them, Yogi. Arizona played within a touchdown of USC.
Oh, I called it. I called the game. I'm totally with you. I've called three of their games this season, so I've seen that. But in those games, they've also like SC to me, they don't have the depth that the teams that are ranked higher than them. I don't know LSU's depth necessarily, but the other teams that have been building that thing for a little while, that's where they lack, bro. Like you look at the player, they brought in 33 transfers. Offensively, you knew all their names. Defensively, unless you were like me working the Pac-12 beat every week, you didn't know a lot of those names, right? None of them came in dramatically proven. Like they didn't have Caleb Williams on defense, right? So I think what we've seen over the last couple games, referencing the Arizona game, they didn't have two of their best players on defense, and they don't have the depth. They were playing their best player, Tuli Tuipulotu, will probably win Defensive Player of the Year in the Pac-12. He's a D lineman, edge rusher, D tackle. He's playing Mike Backer because he's that active.
You're talking to me. They beat Arizona by 8, and then 2 weeks ago they beat Cal by 6. Like
that's what I'm saying. But they didn't have those guys in the game, and I think the players that I'm referencing, are that impactful. If they don't play, they're going to play this weekend against UCLA from everything that I'm reading and seeing. But that's the fall off. Like that's where Alabama and Georgia and those teams have built. So SC's got to be at full strength to ride with your Roman army. But that's what they're going to be this weekend. So that's where I net out of like I've been on a bunch of shows where like, can SC really hang? I'm like, well, let's find out.